So there's something pretty major happening down in Louisiana. A whole series of new laws are fundamentally changing how the public gets information. We're talking about a system that's been around for more than 100 years, getting completely overhauled. And the fallout, well, it could affect pretty much everyone.
To really get what's at stake here, let's start with what one resident, Jim Miller, said at a town hall. His frustration, it just cuts right to the heart of this whole thing. There's a new burden, and it's being shifted directly onto regular people.
At its core, this whole situation is about flipping the idea of transparency completely on its head. I mean, we're moving from a system where information was literally brought to you to a new one where you have to become a detective and hunt it down yourself.
So, for ages, the official journal model meant your local newspaper pushed public notices right out into the community. Simple, right? Everything was in one place. But this new model, it forces you to pull that same information from like a maze of different government websites. And that is exactly what Jim Miller was talking about with the search cost. The actual time and energy it now takes just to stay in the loop.
Okay, so you're probably asking, why in the world would they do this? Well, to be fair, there is an official reason. Proponents are framing this as a much-needed step to modernize government, bring it into the 21st century.
The main argument, especially for a big bill called SB 146, really boils down to one word: efficiency. The idea sounds simple enough. Why should taxpayers pay private newspapers to publish notices when local governments can just pop them up on their own websites for free? It's really pitched as a win-win for everybody.
But what's being sold as efficiency is being described by critics as, well, something else entirely. They see a systematic attack on the financial lifeblood of local news. And they say this isn't just one bill, it's a coordinated strategy.
And Marcus Thorne from the Louisiana Press Association, he puts it pretty bluntly. He doesn't see this as a single action at all. No, he sees it as a deliberate, coordinated financial assault designed to weaken local news organizations one cut at a time.
So how does this death by 1,000 cuts actually play out? Well, it's basically a three-punch combo. First, SB 146 lets governments cut off the main money pipeline from public notices. Then, SB 224 goes after specific, regular notices like school board pay to bleed the papers even more. And finally, SB 41 slows down the payments for whatever is left, creating a massive cash flow crisis.
Let's just focus on that third cut, SB 41, for a second, because it's a masterclass in financial pressure. The law extends the deadline for a clerk to provide meeting minutes from 20 days all the way to 45. What this does is it basically forces small newspapers to give the government an interest-free loan. Think about it. They have to cover all their operating costs for an extra 25 days before they can even send an invoice. For a small local paper, a cash flow crunch like that can be absolutely devastating.
So you've got this intense financial squeeze happening. But that's paired with something that might be even more concerning: a brand new, totally legal delay in the flow of information itself.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it's not just about the money anymore. When you look at the timeline, you see how two of these new laws combine to create this massive potential information blackout. We're talking a gap of 65 days.
Okay, so just follow this timeline. On day one, your local council votes on, say, a new tax. Now, under SB 41, the clerk has until day 45 just to hand over the notes from that meeting. Then, SB 46 gives the government's own website manager another 20 days to post them. So, by the time you find out about it, it's been over 2 months. The decision is made. The money's probably already spent.
And on top of all these delays, there is this immense new pressure on individual government workers. As civic advocate Elena Vance points out, the law now places personal, criminal liability on the person designated as responsible. That means a simple website glitch, a server crash, could now literally lead to jail time for a public servant.
And all of this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it might be the biggest long-term risk of all: the very permanence of the public record itself.
So we're moving away from independent archives, think of newspapers stored in libraries, to government-run digital servers. And this shift prompted another resident, David Clark, to ask a really simple but really powerful question.
I mean, look at this. We are literally moving from a decentralized system, with thousands of physical copies ensuring the record survives, to a centralized and, frankly, fragile one. The government is now both the creator of the record and its only archivist. A single server failure, a messed up website migration, or something called link rot could literally wipe out legal history forever.
So we're left with this final, really provocative thought from Elena Vance. When the government becomes the sole gatekeeper of its own history, what's to stop that history from being quietly rewritten or just erased completely? The promise of digital efficiency is real, but the cost might just be the public's ability to hold its leaders accountable.